Hi, everybody. Welcome to my webinar on getting started with Microsoft Teams. It's great to have you on board. What I want to do today is just run through some real basics on Microsoft Teams, how it works, what it does, how you can use it. It's a really good tool at the moment with remote workers, people spread all over the place, to allow you all to keep in touch and be able to communicate effectively as a team. So without further ado, I'm going to switch to one of my screens and I'm going to show you some information. So one of the things I want to say first off, on the webinar, you've got there is a chat option there where you can pop on there. You can chat, leave me a message, ask any questions. I'll try and come to the questions at the end and answer anything that you need to know. But what I wanted to run through first was with Microsoft Teams. First off, how do you get it? What are you licensed for? So as long as you've got an Office 365 subscription, you've most likely got Microsoft Teams. So you can see here on my screen, you've got a whole bunch of small business plans, so Business Essentials, Premium, and Microsoft 365, which contain Microsoft Teams as standard. So the only thing you might have where you don't have Teams is if you have an email account. So if you have literally something called Exchange Online, which is the cheapest Microsoft plan, you may not have Microsoft Teams as part of that subscription. Good news, at the moment, because of the current circumstances, Microsoft are giving away 6-month trials of Teams. I'll put the link. I'll send the link out afterwards for that, so you can get hold of Microsoft Teams for 6 months for free if you don't have it on your subscription. But the first thing is, what is Teams and what does it look like, and how do you access it? So what I've actually done is I've set up a trial subscription. So I'm just going to see if I can bring that up in a second. So what we do to get to Teams, literally from our browser, we can go to teams.microsoft.com. So teams.microsoft.com, I'll put the link in the chat. And from teams.microsoft.com, you can log in. So it'll ask you for your Office 365 login details. So I'm going to use this demo account I've got here. Just going to grab the password quickly. And once we've logged in, we will be asked if we want to stay signed in. I'll say no for now. You'll have a couple of options. So you'll be presented with the options of downloading the Teams client. So you can say here, get the Windows app. So if you're running on a system where you've got rights to install software, where it's not locked down by IT, you can get the app. That will give you a physical Windows program that will run all the time for Teams. Alternatively, you can use the web app. For the demo, I'm going to use the web app. Functionality-wise, they're both exactly the same. So you can use the web app or the Windows app. So here we go. I'm into the web app. So this is what Microsoft Teams looks like as what you would see when you first log in. So in my demo here, I've already got a team created. Now, team is essentially a group of people. It is a team. So the way that Teams works, you put together your group of people and they can all chat to each other. And you can build loads of different teams. So you can create a team for different groups and functions. So the thing to think about here when you're creating a team is who needs to be in the team, who needs to collaborate on that information. And to create a team, literally down the bottom, right down the bottom of the screen here, you'll see there, it says here, join or create a team. And you click into that, and you get a lovely wizard that walks you through what to do. So for this example, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a management team. So I'm just going to add in the managers of the company so that we can all communicate. So literally create a team. And you get a couple of options here, build a team from scratch, create from the Office 365 group. So the create from a group is if you're already in a company where you have groups of people already created in Office 365, you might already have a group for HR, you might already have a management group. You can create a Microsoft Teams group from that group. But here we're going to say we don't, so we're going to build one from scratch. We then get asked what kind of team it's going to be. So whether it's going to be a private team, which means that people can't join. You add the people you want within the team, and other people need permissions to join the group. Public is that anybody within your organization can join. So that would be a group that anybody in your Office 365 tenant can join. And then org-wide, which sounds very similar to public in the way that everybody can join, but actually everybody's automatically joined. So if you need to create a team that literally has every single person in the company and they're automatically added to that, that would be an org-wide team. And it's really useful to have one of those actually as a kind of a general announcement. So if you want to kind of send messages to everybody in the company, just create an org-wide team. For this demo, I'm just going to do a private team as an example. So it's going to ask us to give our team a name. So for this one, I say we're going to call it management. So we're going to create a management team. Dead straightforward. The description there is for, so if you've got a lot of teams created, you've got a lot of people in the company that are going to look through those, then the description kind of helps tell people what that team's all about and why they might want to join it. So let's call this one team for management discussion. And we press create. And with a bit of luck, it will build us a team. There we go, nice work. So straight away then, you can see just about in the background there, grayed out, is created management, and it's created us a general channel, which I'll go through in a second. But what we can do here, straight away, we get asked who we want to add to the management team. So I'm going to add in our retail manager there. I'm going to add in, to see who else we've got. Let's add one more person. There we go, let's add Brian. And as we add people here, it gives us options whether they're owners or members. The owners can obviously make changes to the team. So you may want certain people to be added as owners. You as the team creator, when you're from your Office 365 account, you'll be able to always edit and control those teams. So let's have just one more person. I don't know. There we go. Okay. So we close off. Now we have our new management team created. And whenever you create a team, you always get a channel. So the channel here is called General. This is created as standard by default underneath the team. Now you could get away with just using that. You could just hold all of your conversation within the general channel, but actually you'd be missing out on a lot of the features of Teams itself. So one of the big features of Teams is actually the fact that you have threaded conversations. So the fact that I can, let's just type something here. I can type something and that's my message. And then somebody else on Teams can reply and they might go reply. And you'll see this is all kept in a thread. And if I start another new conversation, it comes below. And this stays continuously within the channel. So if you just have one channel like general and you start using that for everything, it's going to become really messy really quickly in terms of keeping track of what's what. So the best way to use Teams is underneath your group, start create another channel for whatever you want. So for management, we might have another channel. So we go onto the three dots there, which are called the hamburger, add channel. And it's going to ask us what we want to call the channel. So for management, let's say we're going to have a management channel for policies. And again, the description might be channel for policies. You don't have to do a description. In fact, normally I wouldn't bother, just from a demo point of view, it's useful. Privacy, again, you can have this open for everybody within the team. So if you've got a management team, again, as standard, everybody within that management group at the top will be able to see this. Or you can actually lock it down to even a subset of the team. So you can actually have channels within teams that have less people in them. So you have actually, custom groups. Let's keep this one standard. And then actually, this is quite an important tick box. You have a box that says automatically show this channel in everyone's channel list. If you don't tick this, then unless someone finds and adds the channel, they don't see it on their team screen. And obviously, you don't necessarily want to clutter up everybody's teams with all these channels that they might not be relevant for. So you need to think carefully about whether you tick that. But for something like where we were talking about having a general channel for the company, you'd probably want to automatically show that. And that means it would appear on everybody's teams when they're in the channel. So let's add this on. There we go. So now we've got two areas. We've got general and we've got policies. And you can see my chat that was in general isn't in policies because policies is a separate channel. So this is how you can start to build out channels for discussion. So you build out additional channels underneath your teams. Now within each channel as well, you've got, let me just dismiss that. You have the area at the bottom to type and start your conversation. And again, anything you type in here will become available for someone to see. It doesn't necessarily go bold on their screen, so they won't. It's not like email where they would see they've got a new message. They'd have to jump in and look, unless you mention them. So you see there it says to mention someone. So if you may be used to this with Twitter, if you use Twitter, obviously on Office 365 on email, you can mention someone. If we type there, it brings us up a list of the people that we can in. So these will be actually people that are in the channel. So I can't somebody that isn't within this management group. So if I just go Adele, you see it puts Adele's name in there now in kind of purple, which means that she's mentioned. And if I did that, what would happen on Adele's screen when she was logged in is she would actually see policies would go bold, and she'd have something up here on activity, and that would show her that she's been mentioned. So you can keep track of your mentions and whether people are, communicating with you. So talking about these different areas here, that's the basics of your your teams and your channels. So you can just create as many of these as you want to. The only time you might not be able to create it is if your Office 365 administrator is actually locked down what you can do. As standard, again, that's not the case. So normally end users can create teams and groups and everything like that. If you are locked out, you'd need to speak to your Office 365 administrator or your Teams administrator if you have one of those within the company, and they can then change permissions or they can create the groups for you. But a standard, say on a standard deployment within a sort of an SME type environment, you'll be able to create teams and you'll be able to go straight off and get running with this. So let's dig into the left-hand side a bit first. So we've got some other menus here. So we've got activity. Now mine at the moment is not going to show anything. What I can do in a minute is I'll show you my actual corporate teams and you can see how the activity feed looks because this is just a demo account. But basically with an activity, it will show you anytime you've been mentioned, anytime people have replied to anything you've put on there, anytime someone's mentioned you with that @ symbol. So that will come up in your activity feed. And you can drop down where it says feed and you can see my activity. And that will then show you what you've done. So here you go. If you were looking for a message that you've typed out to somebody, you can change activity to my activity and see everything that you've done on Teams, which is quite handy. But the feed's really handy, actually. The feed's a good place to keep track of what your colleagues are doing when they're talking to you, when they're messaging you. Now, moving on from that, you have chat. So chat is a direct chat. So unlike a Teams channel where everybody within the channel can see what you're typing, chat is just literally between you and the person that you're having a conversation with. So the way that you do that is you have an option at the top here, little pen. It's not that clear, but literally up by the search bar, there's a little kind of pencil there. You can do new chat and it will let you know. Let me just say, got it on there. A bit like an email, it'll ask you who you're going to send it to. So I think we had someone in the directory called Alex. Let's send Alex a chat. So we'll choose Alex, and we can add more people actually. So we can have chats with multiple people. So let's add Enrico as well. There we go. So Alex and Enrico. There we go. So that's now a chat that we're running between Alex and Enrico and myself. And within a chat, again, we can start to do funky things. So we can share files. We can have video calls over the corner here. So like we're doing with the webinar, we could do a video. We can call people. Again, I'll run through that very quickly in a minute, but we can start to use communication tools as well as just chat. So that's even just from the chat pane, we can do this stuff. And then the icon at the corner here, this one that's, you can see with 3, that shows you who's actually within this channel. And again, you can add more people into the chat. I think you can also do that here from, oh no, they have moved it. Yep, so it's there, add people. So you can bring more people into this particular chat. This, if you're used to using WhatsApp, very similar. When you start to do chats between groups of people, they become their own kind of chat channels. So if I did another chat up here and I did another new one, but just with Alex this time, and I'll go. Now I've got a separate chat. So I've got a chat with Alex and Enrico. I've got a chat with Alex. And if I did a chat with Enrico and somebody different, then I'd have another set of chats. So you get this kind of build up of different chats all down the side here for the different people that you're chatting with. So that's chatting, and that's a great way of kind of communicating between people without having to do it within channel. You also have contacts, and you can start to list your favorite contacts. So this is a bit like Skype, where they've kind of built this functionality in. We'll see it in a minute with calls, but under contacts, you can add, with the dots, you can add contacts into groups. You can create contact groups for chat. Personally, I think it's easier just to do new chat, type the name of the person you're looking for. Likewise, you can also use this search bar at the top. So we'll go into that again in a bit, but you can see you can start to type people into there as well, and you can find them, and you can select them, and then you could, again, it'll bring them straight into a chat as standard, so you can chat with them. So that's chat, and we've covered Teams. Let's go to calendar. So some of you may have used Teams from the point of view of having meetings. It's a fantastic way to have a video conversation, bring in lots of people on call or on chat. Again, on here, because it's a demo account, my calendar is blank, but if we had Teams meetings lined up, we'd actually see normally our whole 365 calendar here. So if you're using Office 365, you'd see all of your calendar stuff. Anything that's a Teams meeting would have a link next to it to say join. In fact, let me see if I can just show you quickly on mine, because I'll have one on here from today. So if I bring my calendar across here, this is my current Teams. This one here, it's actually already been and gone, but there's a join button there. And if it was something that was in the future, sometimes we'll put the join button on the calendar. It doesn't always seem to do that, but you can click into a meeting and join a Teams meeting from there. I'll just drag mine back out of the way. What you can do is you can create a Teams meeting. So if you want to bring people together, have a meeting, doesn't have to be people within the company, it can be anybody. So you can go new meeting. Basically very much like adding an Office 365 meeting, we can call this new Teams meeting. We add our attendees, so we start off, these can be people from the directory, so you start typing names again, it will look in your Office 365 directory. You can also type an email address. And as long as your organization allows you to do external, it will let you invite external people. So all these people will then get an email to say that they've been invited, it will appear in their Outlook calendar, and they get a link to join the Teams meeting. Just like a normal schedule, you can make it repeat. If you want to, you can add a particular channel. I would tend to do it as a standalone meeting. Location, when you do it as a Teams meeting, it actually sends to them that it's a Teams meeting, so you don't need to worry about that and the details. And when you send that, I say it will appear in their calendar. They will get a Teams link. And if you've never received one before, I'll see again if I can find one for you quickly. It looks something like, with me. Basically, your recipients will get a link that will show them. It says join Teams meeting. It's very straightforward. I'm just going to try and find one quickly for you now. I should have had one prepared. My fault. Here we go. Let's open this one up and I'll drag it over. So your recipients, when they click onto their calendar, they'll see something like this. It says join Teams meeting. And if they click on that, that will take them to the web page of Teams that we saw a bit earlier on, and it will give them the option to join on the web, or it will give them the option to download or run the client. And if they've already got the client installed, it will launch the Teams client and actually give them access to your meeting through Teams client. Now, what you will see, this is something that's definitely worth mentioning. Here you can see on my Teams here that it says join Teams meeting, and that's it. It doesn't have any dial-in numbers, no way for someone to phone in. As standard on Teams, on your package that you will get with your sort of your SME-based 365, like your business premium and that kind of thing, you do not get any dial-in. So whereas if you're used to something like a Zoom meeting or go to webinar, you'll see on those that you always get a kind of a dial-in number that you can people can dial into the conversation in case they don't have, they don't have a headset or they don't have Teams or whatever. You don't get that as standard with Microsoft Teams. That is a paid-for add-on. From memory, it's called PSTN dialing. Again, I can can ping around some information afterwards on that one, but it's something that you do need to pay for. Worth bearing in mind, because again, obviously, if you create a Teams meeting and someone doesn't have a way to do the audio, so if they don't have a headset, then it's a little bit more tricky. They can get the Teams app on a mobile, and that does work quite well, and that will give them video and or audio, so they can use the phone literally up to their ear like a normal phone and talk in the meeting. So that's one way around it without having to buy the dial-in. But it's worth bearing in mind. So this is something that catches people out, that you don't get a dial-in number with Teams as standard. But yes, you can create your video conferences. You can have loads of people on there. The way Teams tends to work is it will bring up kind of people on the screen, and it will show you who's calling. When people are going through the chat and they're talking, it will bring up on screen the different people as and when they talk. So as long as someone's talking for more than a few seconds, it will kind of ping them up on screen and show you a bit more about them. As standard, again, the view will show you 4 people on the screen as they're making a call. Unfortunately, again, because it's a demo, I can't really make one now, and because I've got my webcam running for the webinar, I can't make a Teams call. That's how it works. Essentially, you see yourself, and you can see anybody that's got the video turned on will be shown up on the screen. So it's really good. It's a really good way of collaborating in a meeting. If you don't want to schedule a meeting, I'm just going to discard this one. You also have the option from the calendar screen to say Meet Now. So if you literally just want to fire up a Teams video meeting, hit the Meet Now button. I'm not going to do it because I'm not sure if it's going to break the webcam feed that I've got running. But if you hit Meet Now, basically you'll create a room and you have a link that you can copy. And you copy that link, it gives you exactly what we just looked at with that email. It gives that text there, and you can just copy and paste that into an email or send it to somebody, or you can invite them in as well. So if you want to have an instant meeting room, hit Meet Now. That will build the room up for you, and you can get rolling with that. Next, you have calls down the left-hand side. So if you have got the Teams plan where you've got the dial-in number, you'll also probably have the ability to dial out from that. So a bit like Skype, when you could buy a Skype dialing plan, you can make calls. If you don't, which again, this plan here doesn't, you can still make calls. You can call anybody on your Teams session. So what you see here, you can add speed dials. So I've got Megan here on speed dial. Again, the UI is a bit unclear here, where you can see these contacts. You've got other contacts on speed dial. It's not immediately obvious how you add people to this, but you have to go right the way across to the edge of your screen, and you've got the dots. And from the dots, you can add contacts. So you can put more people into the group. So let's add Enrico again. You can go to my speed dials there. You can create new groups. So you might want to create a group called, I don't know, friends, as an example. And let's create that now. And again, it's not very clear, but it comes up quite small, tucked away there, and you need to use the dots again and start adding people to that group. So let's add. Find somebody. Here we go. Let's add Christy. Okay. And what you'll see here again, because it's a Teams demo client, none of these people are online. I don't think they really exist. But if they were online, it would say if they're online, it would show you their current status, free, busy. What I can do quickly is I can show you on mine. If I drag in my office one here, I've got my group arranged here. So I've created a management group, technicians group. You can see if people are away, if they're available. This updates from 365 as well. So if someone has a meeting scheduled, at the time the meeting is in your calendar, it will set your status to busy, and you can change that. So if you go up to the top to your picture, your face, click on there, you have the option where it says do not disturb. You can change it busy, available, appear away, be right back. And it does occasionally do something intelligent where it tries to work out if you're actually available or not. So sometimes you'll see on there that actually people are green, but they're kind of green with a backed out circle. So a bit like this, but it's green with a tick, and that kind of means that they're available but out of the office. But it's a bit grey. It doesn't always work very well. So I think the thing is, if someone's green, you can give them a call. If you send someone a message or try and call them when they're on Do Not Disturb, essentially what happens is it just doesn't pop up on the screen. So I've got my Teams in Do Not Disturb at the moment. If someone in the office messages me now, nothing will happen. And then when I finish this call and I set myself back to available, it will ping up and I'll be able to see what I've missed. So you don't lose out on anything. And that's the nice thing with Teams compared to some other solutions. When you're unavailable, you can still receive the messages. So that's your groups and your calls. And I say from this speed dial page, you can be calling people. So you can click to call people here, choosing people. Contacts will give you your contact list. And again, you can add people to this. It's a bit repetitive. It's almost the same stuff we've already done. So as you start to use Teams and your list build up anyway, you'll be able to click on people and call them and find them. I've never really needed to use this section so much. History is quite useful. So again, when you've made your calls, you can see what you've done. Again, better if I show you something useful. If I bring my one over, these are calls that I've made to people in the office. Again, we use our traditional phone system as well, so we don't use Teams exclusively for comms, but actually whilst a lot of us are working from home at the moment, we can obviously make calls between each other on Teams. It's quite useful. We can share screens and stuff, which I'll show you in a second. The last thing you have on here, and I didn't actually know this was a thing until the other day when I Teams called someone in the office and they didn't pick up and actually got a Teams voicemail. So yeah, you have voicemail. As standard, again, when someone leaves you a message, you'll get a notification that you've got a voicemail message. It will appear here. And it gets transcribed as well. So Microsoft kind of intelligently listen to what your colleague has said, and they put it down here as text, so you can read it. And it's not bad. It's reasonably accurate, so you can get a fair gist of what the message is about without actually having to listen to the whole thing. So that's cool. So this is all built in. This is all part and parcel of what you pay for. And then lastly, down the left, we've got files. Now, I don't particularly use files from here. Files basically, with Teams, it links to something called SharePoint, which you may or may not be familiar with, but behind each Teams group, let's go back to our Teams groups. Behind each one of these groups is a SharePoint file library. So you can see at the top where we've got the name of our group policies, we actually have a tab for files and a tab for wiki. If we go into the files tab, what we can do is, this one doesn't have any there yet, it's probably because it hasn't provisioned. Nothing on that one, otherwise I'll show you one of mine. Okay, what you would normally end up with, I think it's because this is a demo tenant, you would end up with a group of files. So let me just see if I can find something that's not so too confidential. I can show you. Here we go. So on my OneFix general, I've got files here, and under here we've got some files that we've uploaded, and we can upload files, we can add them. If we press sync, that brings them back down to our computer and synchronizes them with OneDrive. Again, if you're used to using SharePoint, it's very much the same thing. It synchronizes those back. We can open them in SharePoint. What it does mean is that you can start to do some collaboration. So you can actually share, if you share a document within the Teams channel, just demo one back. If you were to, on this demo here, you can see right down the bottom, I've got my things here where I can change my fonts and add emojis and that kind of thing. I can actually attach a file. So if I attach in, yeah, okay, because it's a demo, I can't. If I attach in a file, what would happen is that that file goes to the team. If it was an Excel file, for example, they would see that file available. They can click and edit and view it. And with that, then you can then talk and collaborate around that. So that's again built in, and that all those files then get stored in the background. And the files are per channel. So if you have you can't do anything on the master group, you can't click management and see all the files. You would have to go into each individual section and view them. But you can then search across everything you have access to, and that's what you would then see under files is the stuff that you've recently viewed and that you have access to, the files you have under Teams, the files you have under OneDrive. So Microsoft are trying to bring everything together within Teams to make it kind of like an operating system or a dashboard for the place that you can do your kind of day-to-day work without having to leave Teams. So if your company, your organization is already on SharePoint and you're already kind of starting to use that and using it more, then you can do more and more from within Teams without having to leave the software, which is great. So a few other things. I'm just going to show you a few other quick, useful things, and then I think we've probably covered off enough from a beginner's guide point of view. When you're typing a message, just get back to the Teams. Obviously, you can reply here. You've got these buttons underneath where you've got your reply box, and this is where you can do your formatting. So let's just type something there. You can make it bold, you can make it italic, standard sort of stuff, Microsoft Word style. You can change the formatting. What you can also do is you can insert emojis. So you have a whole section of emojis, not as many as you would get on your phone, but there are some default emojis there. So stick one of those in. If you just have an emoji on its own, it comes in bigger than normal. That's not come off the screen. There we go. You can also do GIFs. These can be disabled by administrators, by the way. So if you don't want the users to be able to use GIFs, you can disable those. But again, people can go, pop that in, send it. There we go. So it can be. There's two schools of thoughts on GIFs, whether they're productive or non-productive. I think again within a team environment, it's quite nice to have a bit of kind of workflow and banter as well. So I think they're fun as long as they're not abused. And you just keep an eye on that. You have stickers. Again, these are a little bit interesting, but you can do different stickers. And you can fire off a meeting as well from a team. So if there's a conversation going on here, you can say, like, let's have a meet, and it will bring people into a video chat then that you can meet and chat about things. Stream, I'm not going to worry about for now. That's a video streaming platform that you can start to do things like webinars and collaboration. But praise is quite good, and we use praise within our company. Actually, is quite a useful thing. So if you've got someone who's done a great job, you can send praise. So you can go leadership. Great job on that project. Excuse the spelling. I'm going to send that to Enrico. Let me send that. And what happens is then it adds the praise there, and so basically, you can use that as kind of a collaborative, like giving people a big high five. You can call people out on the team. You can really show the benefit to people. So that's all built in, praise and all these things. And then you have the little dots as well, where you can get to some other bits and pieces. So there are some other built-in items here. Have a play around with these yourself, but there's forms, news, stocks, Wikipedia search, YouTube. You can embed YouTube videos. And then off the back of that, if there's something that you want that you can't find, you go to more apps, and there's an entire app store of stuff that you can add in. So corporate-wise, if you're using things like Jira, you can bring Jira in, Zoom, Polly's quite good. Polly gives you the ability to do polling the users, so you can create polls within the channels. And again, normally, unless there's anything that says that they're not, these are free, so they're normally interactive. They're normally kind of linking with other things. So, you wouldn't use the Trello tool here unless you were using Trello. So, but have a look. Again, you'll find that there'll be loads and loads of Teams apps that link in with tools that you might already be using in the company. So they will always appear then, say under the dots, that you can find those things and you can apply them. So that's the basics of kind of Teams, how to get started with it. The main thing is to say to literally log in, get it rolling. If you get a message that you don't have a subscription, then you need to speak to your administrator, or you need to have a look and see about adding on Teams. As I say, there are trials available, definitely worth taking advantage of. What we can do on here as well, very lastly, is again, a few of the other apps that you might install will appear here. So again, you can link in with things like OneNote if you want to do note collaboration, Planner, which is Microsoft's kind of very basic project planning tool that you get as part of Office 365. So what you see under here may be different to what I'm seeing here on the demo. Again, it depends on what you have available to you within Teams. But I definitely would encourage you to just get started, start playing around with it. There's so much more you can do. This is really scratching the surface of what you can do with Teams. One final thing I'll show you actually that's really useful. This is sort of a power tip. As you create your teams, you can press the plus on these channels here and you can add stuff in. So you'll see here when we go add tab, you can bang in an Excel document, or you can stick a PDF in, or you can do some, if you're super at charting and Power BI, you can put a Power BI report onto the team. Again, this is really good if you have groups of stuff where you want, say, a management team. You might have a management report that you want to show on Power BI, or you might have a particular Excel spreadsheet that refers to what you're doing, or a PDF that explains the rules of what you need people to do within the channel. So you can add kind of as many tabs as you want. You get to the stage where you can't see them all and you have to sort of close them off or move them around. But essentially, those are the ones you can add. You always start, every channel you create has a post, a file, and a wiki. I think you can remove wiki from memory, but you can't remove, no, maybe you can't. You certainly can't remove files, and posts you can't because that's standard. So, and the wiki is again somewhere you can kind of do a bit of collaboration and creating a knowledge base. So there you go. That was a really quick kind of surface dive on Teams. The plan is I'm going to do a series of Wednesday webinars called Wednesday Webinars. They're going to be Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. What we will do is each week we're going to dive into a different topic. One of the topics that may be of interest is a deep dive in Teams. So I think we can do something slightly more advanced for another follow-up webinar. So keep an eye out. I'll make sure I communicate to all of the people that have attended about what we've got going on. I don't think we've got any specific questions in the chat at the moment. So we don't. So that's great. So as I say, best thing to do, keep an eye out. Wednesday webinars, they'll always be on Wednesday, they'll always be at 1 p.m. For the foreseeable future, we're going to do them on all sorts of different topics, but we will definitely do an advanced deep dive on Teams. But for now, I hope that was very useful for you. That is a brief overview of Teams. I've been Craig from OneFix Limited, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks very much.